Welcome to the 5th module in the Visionary Board Leadership Program. My name is Shannon Studden, and I'm a Senior Program Specialist with the National Rural Health Resource Center, a national nonprofit organization dedicated to improving and sustaining the health of rural communities. In previous modules, we've explored the impact that having a clear vision, strong partnerships, and intentional communication can have on an organization's ability to successfully make the transition to value and population health. Today, we're going to connect back to all of these topics, but in particular, we're going to ask you to think again about your long-term vision. Specifically, we'll be talking about the importance of thinking about what skills and knowledge your workforce, and in particular, your senior leadership team, needs to have in order to achieve this vision. The more proactive you can be as a board to ensure that your current and future employees have the right skills and knowledge, the better positioned your organization will be to succeed in an always evolving healthcare environment. Just like in past modules, other leaders will be joining us to share their experiences with employee development and succession planning, and we'll end by suggesting a few things for you to discuss with your fellow board members and pay attention to between now and our next module, which is the last module in this series. So let's get started. If you learned today that your CEO is leaving to take another job, do you know what you would do to fill his or her shoes? If so, you're in a better position than many hospitals. And if not, you're not alone. Either way, this module may give you some things to think about when it comes to succession planning in your organization. Succession planning is the process of proactively preparing for continuity and growth when leaders leave the organization. Although CEO succession planning is considered a core function of boards, an American Hospital Association survey conducted in 2018 found that 50% of the boards of freestanding hospitals and 24% of hospital system boards had no CEO succession plan in place. Why does this matter? When a CEO leaves without a succession plan in place, the board is often left to install an interim CEO until a permanent CEO can be found. The uncertainty felt by employees and providers during this interim time can result in increased turnover throughout the organization and can ultimately affect quality of care and the financial health of the facility. In addition, strategic planning and major projects can lose momentum if they're put on hold until the new CEO is in place and can incorporate his or her vision into the strategic plan. Because it can take between 6 and 12 months to recruit and hire a new CEO, often at significant cost for a recruiting firm's services, this is a lot of time for an organization to be in waiting mode. And when we consider how quickly the healthcare environment changes, a hospital can lose a lot of ground in the transition to value as it waits. A well-thought-out succession plan can significantly reduce cost and shorten the time span between a CEO's departure and the installment of his or her replacement. Even more importantly, effective succession plans help ensure continued quality of care, employee retention, and progress towards strategic goals. Succession planning involves taking a broad look at the entire organization from two perspectives. First, what knowledge, skills, and experience do our leaders and frontline staff need in order for us to be successful in the future? And second, how can we ensure that this knowledge, these skills, and these experiences are available to our organization, whether by developing our own employees or bringing it in from the outside? Board members are usually responsible only for CEO succession plans. However, because a board sets direction for the entire organization, board members can promote organization-wide succession planning by including it in your strategic planning discussions. In their book, The Heart of Leadership, Inspiration and Practical Guidance for Transforming Your Healthcare Organization, the authors recommend these reflection questions to help board members begin to think about succession planning. What systems are in place to develop the next generation of leaders? How effective is that system, and how do you know? Are we tapping non-traditional and diverse backgrounds in our development? And are any individuals within the organization ready to be the next CEO? Systems and processes for developing leaders include things like annual talent reviews, where the current pool of employees is discussed to identify anyone potentially ready to move up, and areas of growth for each of them. Individualized development plans created for each leader and employees who are developing into leaders, outlining their learning plan for the upcoming year. And cross-functional assignments to help potential leaders broaden their view of the organization as a whole, give them an opportunity to learn new skills, and promote systems thinking.
As you look at the board's role in developing employees, we approach that from an empowerment of the CEO aspect, and that's allowing that CEO to do their job. I certainly, as a board member, want to know what's going on at the hospital, but I have no desire to manage it, and it's not my place to do that. And so those things are essential in being able to do that. But I think the CEO has to provide, an environment where that employees do feel the ability to grow and to do new things and to try new things. The board, I think, has to have some flexibility in allowing the CEO to do their job and not manage the employees themselves. That's just not what we do.
Our board and I am very interested in education and in anybody that wants to advance. I want to help them advance, even if that means they're moving out of our organization. And we hope that doesn't happen, but we certainly want people to accomplish and meet professional and personal goals. And so we have conversations about that. So when somebody first comes on board, we're doing regular onboarding sorts of activities and orientation among the departmental orientation and organizational orientation and just the typical things. But beyond that, making sure that we commit resources to folks doing things like going to conferences and in the past and doing training and participating in leadership development. We have leadership development that's here in the community. We have leadership development through organizations, and making sure that you're promoting that and advocating for all people who are interested in doing that to do that, and then encouraging those that maybe don't feel like maybe that's something they should be doing. So just making the opportunities available, getting them mentors with among the organizational team, but also outside of the team. So making sure that you're connecting folks with other folks that help them accomplish personal and professional goals, and committing resources to that. Because I think if you just say that and you don't set aside resources to help make that a reality, then you really aren't doing anybody any good. You're just talking. So if you want to be authentic, I think you need to make sure that there's funding and resources available for that.
If succession planning is new for your organization, it's best to start with the basics by focusing first on the CEO position. As you think about the skills, knowledge, and experience your future CEO will need in order for your organization to achieve its vision, it's not enough to know what has made your current CEO successful in the past. You need to consider what will be asked of healthcare leaders in the future. In fact, much of what we've been talking about in this program are skills that are critical for healthcare leaders in this rapidly changing environment. Things like understanding the transition to value, systems thinking, visionary leadership, and effective communication. And because of the trend toward partnerships that support value-based care, another key skill is collaborative leadership. This means that the CEOs of the future need to be able to bring diverse partners together to achieve common goals without having formal authority over them. This requires strong relationship building and influence skills. When you've identified the desired characteristics of your future CEO, you can then begin to have discussions about how you'll ensure that your next CEO has these characteristics. An important question is whether you will develop someone internally or hire from outside. Each of these options has its advantages, and it's up to you as board members to create a plan that best fits your needs. There are many advantages to developing your next CEO from within. The primary benefit is continuity and familiarity. Your existing employees already understand the organization's culture, employees, mission, and strategic plan, so the transition between your previous CEO and your new CEO with proven leadership skills can be relatively seamless. Some other benefits include reduced hiring cost and increased employee engagement as a result of development opportunities. You may, however, opt instead to hire from outside if it's important to have a fresh perspective or if no internal candidates are ready to take on the role. It's important for your current CEO to be part of these conversations. If your board and CEO haven't discussed succession planning before, it may at first feel like an awkward topic to discuss together. Having these conversations doesn't mean, however, that you're not happy with the current CEO's performance. It means that the board is looking out for the future of the facility and its employees, and even for the current CEO, him or herself. If he or she decides to take another position or retire, having a succession plan in place makes the experience less stressful for them as well. It also helps them identify specific things to focus on as they work to develop the next generation of leaders within the organization.
CEO succession planning is very important. From a personal experience, I found myself in that exact situation where the CEO of our organization had left, and the board dusted off an old policy that indicated that I was to serve as the interim CEO. Those situations probably shouldn't happen with a board. The board should be very proactive in having a succession policy and a plan and educating the staff on that plan. Our board has been very proactive since that time in revisiting a succession policy every year, making updates to it when it's necessary, and then also encouraging myself to be proactive in succession planning as well, keeping more than 2 executive level employees up to date on board information, keeping them educated and up to speed so that if the time ever comes that they need to implement that succession plan, a well-executed plan will occur.
It needs to be thought about. It's not, I don't think it's something that is offensive to say we're starting to think about who would be the next one to move into that role. I think it's reality, and I think the more you recognize that and start working that, the stronger the organization is. And I've always been the type that I'm not threatened by my team. My team supports me. We're stronger together, right? So the more I can develop them and the stronger they can be, the better the whole organization is. I think we've done a good job with that here. I think that we've got an excellent executive team. For the first time, we have one that's going to be retiring, and so we have been working on succession planning with that role, and we worked on it quite early on. We brought a team member on to work with that person for a whole year before that person is going to be retiring the next few months. So we took it seriously, and we actively managed the process. And I think that you've got to do that because you just never know what might happen. And I have seen organizations where there has been a lot of transition, and it's difficult for them to really execute on anything because the priorities keep changing every time the person in the chair changes. And that continuity, I think, is really important for an organization, but it doesn't necessarily have to be accomplished with one individual. It gets accomplished through a shared vision of a team. And so if I step out, I know that my team knows what the strategies are and knows what we're going to be doing in the next year or two even, and they will carry it forward. So the organization doesn't have to stop and regroup and come up with a whole new focus. I think that that's important, and so having that strength of a team and developing that team is important to the organization for the next generation.
And succession planning conversations shouldn't be focused only on the CEO position. Boards should continually be thinking about board member succession as well. The American Hospital Association recommends that boards examine the desired knowledge, skills, and experience needed on their board and consider whether any gaps can be closed by developing existing board members' knowledge and skills, or if it would better be resolved by recruiting new members. While there's no doubt that experience and knowledge of longtime board members is critical, it's equally important to balance this need for experience with the value that a new perspective brings. In our next module, we'll conclude this series by exploring the topic of influencing performance and inspiring accountability. While boards are usually only responsible for managing the performance of the CEO, many of the approaches and philosophies you use as you do this can set the direction for the organization as a whole. Between now and the next module, however, we'll ask you to consider these questions and share your responses to them at your next board meeting. What systems and processes are in place in our hospital to develop our next generation of leaders? How effective is that system, and how do we know? Are we tapping non-traditional and diverse backgrounds in our development? And are there any individuals within the organization ready to be the next CEO? And something you might consider doing before the next module is to connect with other organizations to learn about how they approach CEO and board member succession planning and employee development. As always, for additional information and resources on any of the topics covered in this module, see the resource guide that accompanies this program by searching for Visionary Board Leadership within the Center's resource library. And of course, please feel free to contact us at the Center anytime for additional support. Thanks for joining us today. We look forward to continuing the conversation next time.